The sound of her heels clacking on glossy tile had always seemed strangely comforting to Kayla. There was always a plan and a destination. Not today, not with the vast, impersonal white corridors of the Axian Embarkation Center, and the heels that were normally her style ultimately caused her pain. Feet. She had been trying to get into the notorious Axian Zoo of rare species for weeks, but she had been met with a bureaucratic roadblock consisting of form demands and special permissions. At last, Kayla allowed her irritation to triumph over her sense of professional etiquette. Six cried out to her band. Converted translator A, tall Axian, rounded the corner, his eyes enlarging slightly in what might have been a surprise. They resembled enormous, exquisite insects with shimmering exoskeletons and delicate antennae. Her English, to the sweet trilling chimes of Axian speech, the impact was always startling. Six was usually courteous, but his tail feathers quivered with barely contained annoyance. He motioned ambiguously down the corridor, saying, "Good to see you, Kayla. We're moving some pretty sensitive exhibits. Maybe another time would be no problem." Kayla's tone was harsher than she had intended. "Scylla, I've jumped," she said. "Via each hoop. I just need to know what else you need from me since I am almost ready to enter the zoo." Syax sighed, and Tenny genuinely drooped. "Kayla, even if I give you permission, I want you to give up because the Board of Overseers will send it again, people. Too many Axians are unsettling." He extended two of his four hands in a plating gesture that, more than any other action or delay, made Kayla flinch in terror. On Earth, she was merely a journalist, but in this place they viewed her as a monster. Six must have noticed the change in her energies. "Kayla, it's not about you specifically. It's who you are. People are overly emotional. The predatory features and forward-facing eyes of you awaken ancient, millennium-old instincts." He hesitated, recalling instances in the past that Kayla shivered in spite of the temperature-controlled setting, yet learning how to build bridges is the main goal, isn't it? Her tone sounded shaky, which was a sharp contrast to her typically strong one. Sai's antenna twitched once more, this time appearing contemplative. "Is that a compliment? Maybe you are more persistent than most of your type." Kayla. In an attempt to add some humor, Six did not smile, but his eyes conveyed a hint of admiration. "Let's strike a deal. You take a restricted tour with little interaction with other Axians if you can control your predatory inclinations." Kayla completed for her lips twisted toward him. "Indeed, if you're able, I'd be willing to present your case before the board." Kayla expressed excitement, saying that there was little possibility of success, but that it was a chance bargain, as she held out her hand. Sai paused for a moment then, her first actual point of contact with an Axian since her arrival occurred when he gently gripped her hand with two of his own. His exoskeleton was chilly and surprisingly smooth to the touch. She followed him, and the Axian murmured, "Already turning away, and please try to walk." Kayla was pleasantly surprised by the Axian Zoo. It was nothing what she had anticipated. Loud noises can irritate the species. Instead of harsh cages or barred enclosures, there were enormous, meticulously climate-controlled areas of simulated nature, including sparkling crystal tunnels, lush mini-forests, and what appeared to be a whole tiny ocean in a dotted expanse, which was incredibly lovely and deserted. "Where are they?" Kayla inquired, perplexed, and Six gestured with one delicate palm to a tangle of glowing vines above. He winked, and two bay-yellow eyes stared out at them before quickly withdrawing when Kayla screamed and staggered. When she believed she could get a better look, the creatures started to resemble sinuous shapes clinging to the cave ceilings. These adorably cute puffballs quickly fled into burrows. "Why are they hiding?" Kayla inquired about frustration. "You are a talking, walking apex predator when you use fascination for warfare." With a gentle voice tinged with sympathy, CAC said, "Most of these creatures come from worlds without anything comparable. They see you, and they see death. He then led her through the virtual environments. Kayla got a peek at the specimen, which was both strange and lovely. All of her instincts were afraid of her, screaming at her to slow down and speak in a whisper. However, as they advanced, a shimmering veil of light marked a habitat boundary, and those same instincts pricked with an uneasy mixture of shame and rage. Past, it was a shadowy region, the darkness giving way to an odd, iridescent radiance. Kayla gasped as figures broke free of the ceiling, their sleek, nearly bat-like forms silhouetted against the glowing walls, their leathery wings outstretched and Bay's eyes glittering in the gloom as they circled above her. A gentle, repetitive sound called wings filled the room. Kayla seemed to tremble from a genuine fear of the cold, not simply the temperature, as CX laughed, the trilling sound barely audible above the light flapping of wings, fear of the air as well. Your kind truly is the definition of danger. She was reminded of how completely different these animals were from her, but a brief moment of interest overcame her discomfort. They almost look like bats, she muttered, recalling how the night people of Earth left the twilight settlement and entered a gigantic dome that held a cylindrical aquarium. Full of life, the air was filled with the sound of bioluminescent fish darting around tall kelp-like structures, painting streaks of blue and green through the water. The animals had an excessive number of eyes and tentacles, and they pulsed lazily with the artificial currents. Their translucent bodies caught the light in strange ways. Even in the deep they knew alertness, as Kayla's nose were filled with a subtle electrical buzz and the smell of synthetic salt water. Six said, as Kayla was fixedly gazing at a hideous armored being with pincers the size of her head as it scurried across the man-made sea floor, scattering lesser fish into the structures resembling kelp. As the creature paused, its stalks swiveling as if feeling their presence outside the tank, a shiver ran up Kayla's spine. She was unable to suppress her macabre curiosity. If she were submerged in that tank, I wonder if they would respond to her in the same manner, was somehow exciting and terrifying at the same time. It's amazing how all these animals respond to people, she finally muttered as they entered a new area, an arid stretch of red sand and twisted rock formations. Sai didn't respond right away. Instead, he studied her with a questioning stare. Confessed at last, but I do feel that you are making progress. You are seeing how uncomfortable your presence is, which is a step toward understanding. Kayla was about to respond when she noticed a flash of movement in the rocks above. She held her breath for a moment, a bright yellow color. The thing was a sleek reptile with iridescent scales that slowly uncoiled from the rocks and slithered into the open. It was enormous, nearly twice Kayla's height as it raised itself on sinuous coils. The eye slowly opened, the slit-like pupil locked on her. Then it blinked. Kayla naturally removed her hand and reached for her translation band, as though it would provide some protection, but the creature wasn't moving. Its massive head was inclined, and its yellow eye was blinking with a disquieting interest and exhaustion. Kayla exhaled a breath of wonder, and Six concurred that one. Is a Zenora. They come from a realm of unrelenting predators, and though it was frightening, the Zenora slithered closer, its scales glistening in the fake sunlight. It was a terrifying creature out of a nightmare, yet even as Kayla stood there, it didn't attack. Too shocked and oddly captivated to move away, it bowed its head glacially slowly, almost reaching Kayla's eye level. When its jaw opened, rows of razor-sharp teeth that might have torn her to pieces were visible, yet instead of roaring, the sound was that of stones gently grinding against one another. Unexpectedly, Syak moved closer and whispered in a low tone that Kayla couldn't understand in Axian, which was comforting the Zenora. The translation band flickered and eventually stopped spouting static in her ear, cocked its head once more, then pivoted and slithered something, vanishing into a crack. What was that just happened? Kayla stumbled, feeling a rush of excitement coursing through her. Sai's antenna twitched, possibly amused, asking if she was dangerous. I told it that she was, but that she didn't mean any damage to the rush of tiredness passed over her. This was far more emotionally taxing than she had anticipated. But even so, when he tilted his head to examine her, perhaps there was hope after all, Kayla. A strange feeling of fulfillment filled her stomach. It was a tiny triumph, one based on her own human form. Perhaps the term dangerous wasn't something she had to flee. Rather, it was the beginning of something new. "Thank you, CX," she answered. "I think I'll take that," startled by the honesty in her voice. Despite the limited hope, the stroll back to the administrative complex was much more enjoyable. Kayla's heels no longer seemed to bother her, and she muttered an old Earth song. Six walked next to her, his antenna quivering at the strange noise, but he did not move. He finally broke the stillness to try to stop her as they got closer to their destination. "Kayla, I'll present my case to the board. It won't be simple, but at least I have evidence now." He gave a hesitant smile, his mandibles making an odd appearance. And kind eyes, Kayla smiled back, a genuine warmth rising through her. Maybe she's simply growing accustomed to being a monster? Her voice had a note of challenge but also acceptance. Maybe Silk's trilled quietly, proving that you are not wholly an uncomfortable influence. The administrative facility loomed ahead, antiseptic and unwelcoming after the vivid habitat's kayak halted her at the door. "Kayla, you have shown me something valuable today," the man said. "I can take you no further, but know this. Monster and human may not be as alike as we think." His eyes with renewed resolve saying, "Thank you, Six. Even if they never let me back into that zoo, I might still do the same for your board." After hesitating, she extended her hand once more in a straightforward human gesture, and CX put two of his own in hers. Shaky and hesitant relationship, however, there was still a connection, and Kayla left the room prepared to take on her next task. "Hello, space travelers. We appreciate you taking the time to blast off on this quick tour of an alien zoo. Are you prepared to go more into our incredible science fiction stories? If you would want to support us, please hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on that notification. Otherwise, click the next video and get ready for another adventure. Ring to ensure you don't miss any interstellar communications. Don't forget to tell us in the comments below what sci-fi tales you hope to read in the future. As usual, have safe travels. Explorer, subscribe to watch more amazing sci-fi stories.